Hello everybody, what's up and welcome back to the Starcraft 2 Own and Shack. David here bringing you FPVOD, episode 17 of my Master League quest. Here I am, facing off against Mr. Plow, the random player, and it's going to be on Typhon Peaks, and this is with the new patch. So let me just talk a bit about that before I get into the casting here. The new patch has brought a bunch of very unique changes, I think, that should really make for some interesting Protoss matchups now. Really curious to see how PvP unfolds, actually. And anyways, what they've done is they've extended the warp gate research time to 160 seconds. It was 140 seconds before, in case you're wondering. So that's going to mean that 4 gates are much more delayed now. Delayed by 20 seconds is actually a pretty big deal. And another thing they've done, they've made it so sentries train faster at gateways. So it's now 37 seconds instead of 42, I believe. Which means that, obviously, Protoss won't be as prone to those early 2 Marauder, 1 Marine, 2 SCV rushes that Terrans can do with concussive shells. The sentry will be out in time to force field that, I think. So that's a really good change, I think. That was probably a little bit imbalanced, being able to push up there so fast, especially on shorter maps. But that's probably going to be a thing of the past with that change. And what else did they do? Oh yes, of course the pylon radius decreased to 6.5 from 7.5. The power radius. That's, I think, a pretty good change. A problem that we saw a lot in Protoss versus Protoss was the foregating and then warping up the ramp. That's going to be much more difficult now with that change. So 4 gates are going to be even further discouraged from that. Or sorry, rather because of that. And that's good because 4 gates are obviously very boring, especially when it's 4 gate versus 4 gate. But anyways, as for the Terran changes, we have the Ghost now at 200-100 as I scout the base here. 200-100 for a Ghost is a good change. It's going to mean that you can get those Ghosts out without cutting into your siege tanks too much because they cost less gas now. Very important in Terran versus Zerg because of the Infestor, the really powerful Infestors now, which should become less powerful because their speed is now reduced to the speed of a Marine and tank. But also, the biggest change with Terran, I think, that's going to really impact Terran versus Protoss is the Thor. The Thor now has energy again, just like it used to, and 250mm strike cannon costs 150 energy, meaning it's almost useless. And, you know, Thors can now be feedback to get rid of pretty much half their health, so that's just fantastic. 300, 200 cost for that Thor, and it can be taken out with 1 feedback that costs 50 energy. That's just fantastic, Blizzard. I really don't understand that change because Thors were actually underused in this matchup as well, but what I think, there must have been some abuse somewhere. If maybe someone can correct me here if I'm wrong. There must be some abuse that was going on with the Thors that led them to do this because it really seems like it just came out of the blue. But anyways, not a big deal for me. I'm not a big Thor user in my TvP anyways. I will be getting that bunker there, by the way. It's something I do all the time versus Protoss now. I am officially a waller against Protoss because, well, it's just essential if you want to live through those early rushes. However, with this new patch, we're going to see how that plays out. So as you can see, back to the actual game here. Jeez, what a tangent. I'm just going up for some tech. I want to see how tech unfolds now versus Protoss simply because, well, I think that with this new warp gate research time being so long, you're going to be able to tech faster without as much risk. So I'm going to be trying that here with the 1-1-1 build, as you can see. My favorite build to do. I think it's really good on this map as well because of those rocks on the left side. You can push through them just like you could on Shakura's Plateau before they changed the map. And it's a really powerful push. And yeah. The only thing that's different here, however, from Shakura's Plateau is that on Shakura's Plateau you could easily wall off your natural. Here, not so much. You can't do that. So you basically risk a lot more by pushing through there because then your main is completely undefended. Whereas on Shakura's Plateau, obviously, you just made that rock area your new entrance. So, anyways, 1-1-1. Going to be going for Banshees here. My favorite unit now. Nah, just joking. Still the siege tank. But yeah, I like the Banshee here because it's going to get me some scouting information, going to force a few stalkers, which I can take out with my siege tanks. And of course, I can kill a few probes, which is always great. I'm also going to be adding a second barracks here instead of adding a command center just because it's a new patch. Don't feel quite so safe yet. Want to have a bit more units before I go out there and expand. So yeah, we're going to have to see how that goes. And obviously he's a Protoss player and he's random, so I'm very, very on the lookout for cheese because, you know what? I'm sorry to any of you random players out there, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of random players do cheeses because they're not as familiar with each race as someone who plays only one race would be, so they're just not as good at macroing with all 3 races that they're going to, you know, do a few more cheeses than you normally see from just, you know, committed players of each race. So anyways, the Banshee's not going over there. I like it also because we're in close spots, so I can get over there pretty easily. And the first thing I look for is the expansion, which is not there. If you see a Protoss without an Expo at this point, be prepared for an all-in, because that's probably what he's going to be doing. And as you can see, there's the 4 warp gates. There's the Nexus with a crap load of Chrono Boost. And I'm just going to let my Banshee go to town. I'm going to cancel that Raven I have building. That's going to be useless against a warp gate rush. And I'm going to get Cloak instead, because Cloak is not useless versus a warp gate rush. In fact, it's pretty good. As you can see, he's bringing up his units now. I got 2 siege tanks though. That's really going to help. And this is hitting at the 8-minute point. The warp gate rushes before were hitting at 6 minutes. So he's either absolutely terrible or this is a new style that I have yet to experience firsthand. But anyways, as you can see, even though I've teched really hard with that 1 bunker and a couple tanks, and the Banshee just owning his all his probes over at his main, he's just gonna rage quit out of here, and there he goes. So that's the new warp gate rush. Obviously, I know this isn't probably the best episode ever, but I do want to show this because it just goes to demonstrate that teching out really hard against Protoss now is actually kind of viable. The 4 warp gate rush is just not as good anymore. It's probably not going to punish you as hard as it used to. And look at that, Masters in 2v2. This guy has his priorities straight. Actually, 2v2 is quite fun. And me, oops, that's not where I wanted to go. There we go. I am currently at like 67 wins or something. Oh, division rank 17, not bad. So I'm moving up, getting up there. Still have, wow, that guy's got a lot of wins. And yeah, so that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again for another Daily Dose of Ownage.